So, I have a message for you. But before that, the joke. And I heard about this elderly woman who came to the synagogue. The service was already on its way, and there was no usher available. So one random member of the congregation went to greet her. I said, "Welcome, Shabbat Shalom." I said, "Let me help you find a seat." And she said, "I would like to be seated in the first row." And the person from the congregation said, no, you don't want that. You know what? The rabbi is very boring. He will put you to sleep. And she said, "Do you know who I am?" "No." I said, "I'm the rabbi's mother." And the guy said, "Do you know who I am?" "No." "Thank God." Okay, I want to talk to you today about language of affection. I think it's kind of related to the joke. Language to affection. The way we talk to each other. And I realized, especially during this last week, and I will tell you in a minute why, I realized how important it is to be careful the way we talk. The way we communicate to each other, or the way sometimes we don't communicate with each other, right? And you may be wondering, why, what triggers this reflection about the way we talk? I will tell you. And it's related to the Football World Cup. You call it soccer, right? Yeah, we did every 4 years, organized by FIFA. And this last week, there was a new change in the rules by FIFA. Do you know that? It's a new rule that it puts limits to trash talking during games, especially for the goalkeepers. And you know why they have to create this change of the rules? Doesn't make me any proud. It's thanks to the Argentinian goalkeeper. His name is Emiliano Martinez. They call it Dibu. The Dibu Martinez, who during the last World Cup, before penalty kicks, he will go and trash talk whoever would go and kick the penalties. And then it was considered that it was to his advantage. And then, of course, eventually Argentina became the world champion, right? But the way this goalkeeper was talking to the people about to kick the penalties was very problematic. Because many of them, they were seriously concerned that the way this guy was trash-talking them was affecting their performance. What is that? So eventually, FIFA, this last week, came out with this law, and they call it the Anti-Dibu Martinez Law. I don't know if I want to have a law called my name because of that. But it was necessary. And the fact that a law like that in sport is necessary, to me, is a big problem. So what happened with humanity that we need a body of law to tell us that we should not talk to each other that way, that the trash talk is bad? Do we really need a law to let us know about that? And it's interesting because explicitly, we don't have anything like that in the Torah. And we all know that the laws that they were giving to us in the Torah, they were giving to us because it was necessary. So everything that was obvious is not part of the Torah. That many of the things, many regulations are not mentioned in the Torah because they are not necessary, are things that we, whole humanity, can realize that without God having to tell us that certain things are bad. Okay? But then, that's why I started to reflect this past week about communication and about the way we talk to each other. And then is this week's parsha, where God called Moses. And the rabbi said that is something very interesting in the way God constantly talked to Moses. And perhaps there is something that we can learn, even if it's not explicit, it's implicit. There is a teaching we can learn in the way God talks to Moses. every time that God wants to communicate something to Moses. This week's Parsha opens by saying, Vayikra el Moshe, Vaydaber elav me'oel moed, leimor. God called Moses, right? And God said something, communicated something to Moses from the Oel Moed. The Oel Moed was this like a, I don't know how to, it's kind of interesting. It's like a magic telephone booth. Yeah, I don't have any better words to say it. It was like a tent that every time God wanted to communicate something to Moses, Moses would have to enter there. And it was a direct communication from God to Moses. But Moses was not allowed to enter there unless God will call him. But it said, Rashi, when he's explaining that first verse, it says, Rashi says that God is using something that is called Leshon Chibah. Have you ever heard that word? Leshon Chibah, which means language of affection. Where does Rashi find language of affection in the way God talked to Moses? And that is something that sometimes we don't realize. Number one, how every time that God wanted to talk to Moses, God called Moses by name. It's never, hey you, I have something to tell you. Never. He said, Moses, come closer. I have something to tell you. And that simple fact that sometimes we don't even think about it when we read the Torah, Rashi called to that Leshon Chibah, language of affection. God is God. God could absolutely say to Moses, hey you, I have something to tell you. Hey you, say this to the people of Israel. No, God said, Moses, come closer. I want something to tell you. I want to ask you to do something. But the fact that God acknowledged that God was talking to the human being with a name, with a history, with a family, etc., it's something that we should all learn, because it's also somehow is talking to us. And it's an invitation to reflect to the way we talk to other people. Yes, many times we use language of affection, but if we feel that we are more important than the other person, the way we may think God was more important than Moses, when we feel that we have certain authority over other people, do we still use language of affection or we don't? That goes when we talk to our children, right? When we talk to coworkers, when we talk to our spouses, do we use language of affection or we forget that that should be human nature? Do we really need a law to let us know that we should not trash talk to other people? Or perhaps we can learn from this week's Parsha that doesn't matter where you are in life, we should always talk to each other using language of affection. So sometimes I realize that we fail. We fail the way we talk to God. And we forget that this week's Parsha, which is interesting, according to the rabbis, is the very first Parsha that it should be taught to children. You know that? As soon as a child is ready to study Torah, the rabbi said, you don't start from Bereshit. You don't start from Genesis. You start from the beginning of the book of Vayikra, which is this week's Parsha. Perhaps the reason is so we can teach our children when they are still in that process that they absorb everything that is around them, that we don't need a law to tell us that we should not trash talk to others. We should learn right away from the Torah that the right thing is to use language of affection at every stage of our life. Shabbat Shalom.